The Choir Guys podcast wouldn't be possible without our amazing sponsors. To see the full list and learn more about them, visit thechoirguyspod.weebly.com/r-sponsors. Now here's a word from this week's featured sponsors. Pavon Publishing is delighted to be a supporter of the Choir Guys. The choral arts and singing are what they are all about. The goal of the company is to provide practical resource materials and creative performance selections for both church and school choirs of all ages. Please visit their website, pavonpublishing.com, to explore their various offerings today. With Class Intercom, your students become the content creators, and you stay in control. It's social media that teaches real skills and it saves you time. Learn more today at classintercom.com. If your choir needs a new fundraising partner, this is it. Kansas Made is easy to work with, and our students love selling their pastries. They are absolutely delicious. Check them out today at kansasmade.com. Encore Tours helps choirs perform around the world with guaranteed audiences, stunning venues, and expert support. Start planning today at encoretours.com.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Choir Guys podcast. My name is Blake Richter.
And I'm Danny Gutierrez.
We are finally back together, Danny.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
We've been over Zoom the past few times because of snow days and other things, but we are back in the studio. And we have a very special guest joining us today. We actually have our first poet on the podcast.
Yes, we do. Our guest today is a poet, author, composer, and clinician, acclaimed as the preeminent choral lyricist of our time.
Ooh.
A passionate collaborator, he has written more than 70 published works with over 100 composers worldwide, including Eric Whitacre, Dan Forrest, Ola Gjeilo, Christopher Tin, and Kim Arneson.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, it's some dude. His texts have been performed by leading ensembles such as the King Singers, Voces 8, Tallis Scholars, and heard in iconic venues from Carnegie Hall to the Vatican, even aboard the International Space Station. You could actually even make the argument that his works have been performed by literally everyone, everywhere. We've seen he's performed in the halls of Nixa High School, where I work many times. His lyrics have resounded there for sure.
Well, speaking of the International Space Station, that is just out of this world, Danny.
It's true.
A sought-after clinician, he presents internationally on choral artistry and collaboration with appearances at Lincoln Center and the Kennedy Center. His poetry for Eric Whitacre's Sleep and Leonardo Dreams of His Flying Machine has been adapted into illustrated children's books, and he is the author of A Silver Thread, a retrospective of his lyric poetry. His essays have appeared in major publications, and his work is featured on Grammy-winning recordings. Beyond writing, he is also an accomplished visual artist specializing in medieval illumination techniques. I can't do that. A veteran educator of nearly 40 years, he retired from teaching just in 2025 and now lives and works in Lawrence, Kansas. Please welcome Tony Silvestri. Thanks for being here.
It's wonderful to be here. I've listened to the podcast for a long time, and it's special for me to be on. I thank you for inviting me.
Great. You retired from teaching. What was the subject that you were teaching?
I taught ancient and medieval history. The first half of my career was teaching 9th grade in Los Angeles, and then the second half was at Washburn University in Topeka. And I taught world history survey courses and specific sort of specialty courses in Greek and Roman and Egyptian and medieval history and Japanese history and pirates and
So are you like a multi-linguist? Do you speak some Greek and other
I studied Greek, I studied Latin. My dissertation was in Latin.
Meaning it was about Latin, right?
Not in...
Was it in Latin?
It was in Latin.
Like literally in Latin?
Yes, my dissertation was an edition of a medieval manuscript.
Wow.
And my job was to collect various copies of the same text and collate them together to create a proper scholarly edition, and it was all in Latin.
Wow. I was watching this. I don't know if you saw this. I was watching a video the other day, and it was like this professor was giving a lecture, and some kid in the back, like he calls him out. He's like, "Hey," the professor's like, "Hey, you need to please get off your phone. I'm trying to teach here." And then he looks up and then starts speaking in Latin, and then goes up there in the front of the class. I guess the professor didn't know about it, and starts giving the speech in Latin to everyone in the class. Have you seen this video yet?
I have not. Okay. I'll have to look for it.
We will share this with you.
Danny's algorithm is kind of different.
Yeah, it's a lot of different things. Yeah. So you what did you teach when you taught ninth grade?
It was World History Survey.
Okay, that was the course.
I taught 9th and 10th grade, yeah. And that's the job I always wanted to have. When I was in 9th grade, I had a dynamic, amazing world history teacher, and I was 13 years old, and I said, this is what I want to do. And so I went to college as a history major. I got my master's, my PhD, and I just wanted to be a high school history teacher, and I loved it. It was great.
Nice. Wow. That's awesome. Well, we actually had the pleasure of seeing you just like a month ago in Springfield, Missouri. It was a surprise because like we were just sitting.
Everyone was at that concert. Michael Barrett pops out of nowhere. Tony Silvestri is there. It was funny because my girlfriend was conducting, and she was like, when she found out like all the people that were there, she was kind of like freaking out in her head. She's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? What's happening right now? Well, she was just freaking out. Like why are all these people here at this concert? You know?
But yeah,
no, it's hardly Podunk, Springfield, Missouri. I mean,
oh yeah, that's very true.
Cameron has created it's a world-class program, and the high school group that performed there is another world-class ensemble, and so you guys are lucky down there to have.
Well, the high school group was not from Springfield. There are some.
She's from St. Louis.
Yeah, there are some high-class Springfield ensembles as well.
Not really. No, I'm just kidding. It was a joke about myself.
Wow, okay. That's really sad.
Shade.
But yes, her group is from St. Louis, and she just they were amazing. But it was super awesome to see the premiere of a work by John Wyckoff and yourself, text by you, Travelers. Ooh, so yesterday I actually got to film the Missouri State Men's Chorus performing that. And so I got to hear it again yesterday. We did 3 takes of it, and it's so cool. And we'll talk a little bit more about like your collaboration with composers throughout that process, and because that's something that I'm very interested to learn more about. And one reason why we wanted to have you on the podcast was to kind of get that different perspective of, we've had a lot of composers on, but we haven't had anyone who specializes in writing the text for pieces.
Man, were we on the money with this podcast?
Yeah.
We found the guy.
Well, actually, you reached out to us. You're like, hey, I love your guys' podcast. If you'd like me to be on, we were like, yep, absolutely. That will happen very soon. You're next on our list. And like, we had already had a long list, and I put you next, and here we are.
Yeah, I think
the line.
I think Blake like sent me a text, like a screenshot of your correspondence with like 5,000 exclamation points afterward, and I think I responded with 5,000 more exclamation points, and that was that. So
we knew what that meant. So
yes, we didn't even talk about it. We just there was an understanding of what was going to happen.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Well, let's get this conversation started.
Let's.
All right. So you're newly retired. So I'm sure in your retirement, you're just like totally dormant.
Not doing anything.
Yeah, of course.
Sitting on the rocking chair. Yeah. Just can't wait till Wheel of Fortune starts.
Yeah. So obviously just kidding.
Hey, I guess Ryan Seacrest is doing a good job, though. I haven't watched it.
Hey, all right. So congrats on retirement, though. But
Thank you.
All kidding aside, let's take us through your career. Now, you talked about it a bit, but like, how did you get to where you are today?
Wow. Well, as I said, I always wanted to be a history teacher, and so I pursued that career, and I never thought about writing poetry. I never tried to write it, and it was just a complete accident, a fluke, really, that got me started in this sort of side gig of my life, which has now become my full-time gig after retirement.
In the rocking chair.
Exactly. When I was in graduate school, in my PhD program, I had taken 4 years of coursework, and it was time to take my qualifying exams and get a start on my dissertation. And I was running out of money, and it was in Los Angeles, and I grew up in Las Vegas. And so I decided to come home for a year to save money and live with my parents. And I had been in choir in undergrad. I went to Loyola Marymount University in LA, and I auditioned and got into their choir with Paul Salomunovich as the director. And I had no idea who he was or what his reputation was. And so my first experience as a chorister was pretty high level. We competed. Yeah, we went to international things and ACDA National and stuff like that. And I couldn't just not be in a choir. So I approached David Weiler at UNLV in Las Vegas, and I introduced myself, and I said, I'd like to be in one of your choirs for the year that I'm going to be living here. And I auditioned for him, and he put me in a choir, and sitting next to me on the riser was Eric Whitacre as an undergrad. And he hadn't written anything, no music. The kid couldn't read music at all. He had sort of Flock of Seagulls hairdo at the time. And we just... Yeah, he still does. We became great friends and just like brothers, really. And that was the start of this amazing collaborative friendship. Fast forward a few years, he was living in LA as well, and he had the famous Stopping by Woods problem that turned into Sleep, which was basically the first poem I ever wrote.
Wow.
And I did it as a favor to him. I had no intention of becoming a lyric poet. But within a year, I wrote Sleep and Luke Zarumque and Leonardo Dreams of His Flying Machine for Eric. And that was right as his career was getting liftoff and people were beginning to perform a lot of his stuff. And very quickly after that, Ola Gjeilo called me, and Dan Forrest and Andrea Ramsey. And I began to write for composers, and I thought it was a fun way of contributing to the choral world that had meant so much to me. So it was a complete fluke. I like to joke, had Eric been an architecture major or something, I would never have written any poems ever in my life.
Well, your poems would have been in buildings, I guess, or something.
Exactly.
Context. I just think about the cosmic,
the way the
power
stars had
or
the line, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. Just the coincidence of boom. Here's these two really iconic people in the choral field that happen to be in the same place at the same time.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I don't know that it's. I don't know if I believe in coincidence. I think there's a kind of destiny there.
Yeah.
He and I have gone on to do great things, and we've had such a good close relationship for so many years, more than 30 years now. And then that has opened the door to the most amazing mountaintop experiences for me. I've been able to write for amazing groups and amazing composers, and I've traveled all over the world. And just because I said yes to my quirky, creative friend who asked for a favor. And so the lesson there is always say yes to a weird opportunity that you might have, because you never know how the course of your life can be changed as a result of it.
Unless it's meth.
Unless it's meth, yeah. I would not recommend.
I feel like I have to add that in for the kids. You know? That's very important, Tony. Because
that's a good caveat. I'll add that to my
your bio.
To my bio,
I said yes to Eric Whitacre.
To the next poem.
Yeah, maybe. You know what? The Nixa Choir program is going to commission you to write a text, because we are like kind of in the meth capital of the world. If you weren't aware, like the Springfield area. So yeah, I think it would be fitting. I don't meth around.
Yeah, I could work meth in as an acrostic or something, so the poem doesn't have to necessarily be about meth, but
medieval Egyptians that hike.
Yeah, I like it.
That's good.
Is that something you do sometimes? You put like little Easter eggs for yourself. Do you ever do that?
I do, and I often do that when I'm stuck. If I can't figure out what to do next, I'll just randomly choose some letters, and then I have to use those letters in the next line. Or sometimes by design, I'll include an acrostic. The first letter of each line of the poem will spell out something. And that kind of creative constraint unlocks words to me. When I'm just staring at the blank page and I don't know what to do, that's the longest part of the creative process. It's when there's some sort of box that I have to put myself in, like meter or rhyme or a certain number of lines, or this poem has to be about this, or it's got to include Latin and English, and the Latin has to say this. I mean, these are the kind of things that I love. I thrive in that kind of constrained creative environment. Or if the composer gives me already composed music and I have to create a lyric for it to justify the musical gestures that they made, or so on. I find that to be so much fun.
Yeah, and I feel like that makes a lot of sense to me. I know, like, Blake's done a lot of arranging and composing, and I've done a little bit of composing. And I know when I have a specific age group and a specific voicing in mind, those parameters make it a lot easier to come up with ideas. Like, okay, well, I'm going to use this and I'm going to use this because they'll pick up on that quickly, and I'm going to use this type of voicing. I can imagine it's a similar thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Running school social media on your own is exhausting. But with Class Intercom, you don't have to. We've been using it for the past 3 years, and it's completely changed our process. All of our social media accounts are connected in one place, and students can contribute content that gets routed to teachers for approval. It's streamlined, empowering, and honestly, fun. We've seen more student engagement, better content, and way less stress. If you're ready to go from overwhelmed to organized, check out classintercom.com. Choir directors, we've been where you are. You need a fundraiser that actually makes money that your students will enjoy. And most importantly, a company that you can trust. That's why we've worked with Kansas-made frozen pastries for over 5 years now. They've helped us sell over $35,000 of pastries in just one fall season. We took home a profit of almost $18,000. The pastries are incredible, the service is outstanding, and the entire experience is smooth from start to finish. If you're ready for a fundraiser that actually delivers in every way, head to kansasmade.com. You won't regret it. Are you a Choir Guys listener thinking about an international tour? Encore Tours is your partner from the first call to final ovation. They help choirs of every kind, like students, church groups, and community ensembles, plan custom trips that include amazing venues, guaranteed audiences, and all the logistics support you need. Find out what's possible and get started today at encoretours.com/choir-guys.
So Tony, I have a question for you. Do you ever sleep? Because it just seems like every time I turn around, like we were saying, like every new choral piece that's coming out, text by Charles Anthony Silvestri. What is your favorite part about writing text for choral literature specifically? And what does the process look like whenever you're commissioned to write a piece, or the text of a piece? What does that process look like with the composer or with, whoever has commissioned you to do that?
Sure. I think my favorite part is the first part of my process, which is a long, thoughtful conversation with the composer, or in some cases, the commissioning body, if it's a choir or whatever, or a commissioning person. I ask the composer a lot of deep questions. I want to know what kind of emotional journey they want the audience to go on. I'd love to know what their influences are, what they'd like me to listen to while I'm writing the poem. Nitpicky things like, how densely do you set text, and how much poem do you want, and what you want it to be about, and what forces are going to sing it. But more important than that is, what emotional power does this piece need to have? And the composer is often very forthcoming with what they want. And I take extensive notes during that process. And it's my favorite part because not only does it give me a really clear sense of what the brief is for me, but the composer almost always drops golden nuggets for me to pick up. Sometimes words or pairs of words that make it into the poem at the end. And it helps me to stop staring at the blank paper and begin to craft the armature around which I'm going to build this poem. And those conversations really help. I start a little folder. I have a manila folder. I always write longhand. I never write poetry on the computer. Each folder has the notes from that original conversation. It has all of my drafts and cross-outs and lists of rhyming words and arrows, and all that kind of craziness. Because I may need to go back to a previous draft or, to solve a puzzle or something like that. And then also in that folder would go the contract, if it gets published, the program from the premiere, if I happen to be there, and then the published octavo when it's available. And then it all goes into a file with all my other poems. I don't know, for my kids to donate to some library someday.
For the Smithsonian.
Yeah, dissertations don't write themselves, so some musicology grad student is gonna like that I saved all that stuff. Maybe, I don't know. That's the historian in me thinking that somebody will care someday.
No, I went to Alice Parker's house, and she has filing cabinets of just all of her. Well, I guess I don't know if it's still there, but she had filing cabinets of just every single piece, and it was organized like down to the T. It was beautiful. So I would do the same thing. That's smart.
It's it's the archivist in me, the researcher. It just wants to keep that record, and I can't tell you how many times the composer will come back to me and say, "Yeah, I need another stanza. The compositional process has required a chorus or a bridge or something like that." And I go back in my folder, and sure enough, there's material there that I abandoned that is perfect for this new thing that they want. And so I like to keep all of that. Yeah. All the process, the messy process stuff. And if I'm composing on the computer, I tend to edit as I go. And so it obliterates process.
Yeah.
And what you're left with is just a finished product without the record of how we got there.
Yeah. I'm guessing you've done it both ways, and you've learned that you just like writing it out longhand better.
Yeah, there are some times when somebody needs something really quickly.
Yeah.
Or it's a poem that's already in process, and Ola Gjeilo, for example, will email me and say, "Hey, I need a bridge, blah blah blah," and I need it like right now. And so I'll just compose it in a Facebook message or in a text. And then I have to remember to go back and put that material back in my folder so that there's a record of it. I'm sure if somebody's doing an audit of my files, they're going to find some pieces that the finished octavo is different than what I have as the poem in my folder, just because things changed in the process and I didn't record it properly.
I can just imagine the three dots for a long time as you're writing the last little bit, and Ola's just waiting, and the three dots are just there,
and he's like, "I said I needed it now."
and
Tony is
the three dots
writing.
go the other way too. It's when I send something to a composer and I want to know what they think, I'm sitting there staring at the three dots.
Yeah.
It's agonizing sometimes to not know are they not responding because they don't like it. Are they not responding because
they're trying to figure out how to
they're
tell
in
me
traffic
that they
or
hate
something?
it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, you have to answer this, or you have to eat a spicy wing or something. You know how those things go. Favorite composer you've ever worked with? Least? No, I'm just kidding. We won't do that.
Wow.
That's an April Fool's joke, I think.
Yeah,
That is-
it is April Fool's today.
I'm prepared to answer, but
No, we will not make you do that. Once
don't wanna
we
throw anybody
stop
under the bus.
recording, no, I'm just kidding. We don't. That was a joke.
the answer is all the composers I
There
have
you
are
go.
my favorite.
There you go. Cool.
All right. So, you mentioned before that you were in a choir, a really high level choir at, what was the school again?
Loyola Marymount
Loyola.
University.
Okay. And so what voice part do you sing?
I sang tenor back then, but my voice has changed, and I'm in a church choir now, and I sing bass.
Okay. Very nice.
Yeah.
So how has so did you take voice lessons at one point as well?
Not at all.
Okay.
I think I took one or two voice lessons for a production of Dido and Aeneas that they were doing at college, and they made all the people who got parts take a couple of voice lessons.
Okay. So do you, I'm interested, do you, is there any sort of influence that your vocal training or your just, I guess, vocal awareness has had on your compositions? Like, I don't know if you're thinking this would be a nice word to hold out pleasantly. Are you having to think about that as well? And what is your process there?
It's integral to my process. I am very intentional when I write lyric poetry about vowel sounds and where those vowel sounds are placed in the meaning of the poem. I'm aware of ending consonants, and I've been in so many rehearsals where some chucklehead just cannot get the cutoff right, and it breaks the spell.
Chucklehead, I like
and
that.
so I try as much as I can to eliminate those pitfalls and traps in the poem. I can't always end every line with an M or an open vowel or something like that. Sometimes you have to have a KS or a TS or something, but I try to minimize that, and I try to give the composer paintable words. I love words like silence and whisper and shadow, things like that just give them lots of things to do. And as I said, vowel sounds. Some vowel sounds are hard to produce for a choral tone. And so if I was writing the climax of a poem where I know the composer is going to probably have tenors and sopranos high in their range, I don't give E sounds. I try to give ah sounds just to do some of the heavy lifting for the performers and for the composer. So I'm very mindful of all of that. I chant all of my poetry as I'm writing it, and if it sounds good in my mouth, then it's okay. If it's crunchy, then I go back and I try to change it. Sometimes I'll make up melodies as I'm
That's what I was going to
writing.
ask. Was like, I feel like there's no way you can write out text and not like kind of have I guess a picture of, not an actual picture, but like a picture of what it's going to sound like. Have you ever been like, have you ever been surprised that like a composer will do it similarly than to how you thought it was going to be?
Yeah,
or have you ever been
that
like,
happens more often than not.
oh yeah,
That it's almost exactly the way I heard it in my head.
that's awesome.
And the composer just gets it. And they tell me that that's a hallmark of my writing, that it just composes itself.
Yeah.
And maybe it's that intentional work that I do as I'm writing to sing and chant and make sure that it's appropriately singable.
Yeah.
If it's an art song, then I'm less concerned about that. I think a solo performer can sing almost anything. And so I'm less concerned with crunchy consonants or vowel qualities just because a solo performer can get away with that. When you're trying to blend a choral tone, I need to be a little more mindful of that in my writing.
Yeah. How involved are you, whenever it comes to like, okay, you've written the text, you send it to the composer. I'm sure there's some composers that want more of your input and some that are like, I'm just going to do all the music. And then do you ever like give some feedback about like, hey, I actually think it would sound better if you went up here with the melody or anything like what kind of feedback and what kind of conversation are you having there?
Well, I have had all manner of the spectrum of all of those responses. The most common is the composer just wants the poem, it's done, and I don't have any say. I don't have any say in what the music is going to be like. And then the other side of that is I get to be in the same room with the composer, and the words and the music come together at the same time.
That's awesome.
Those are electrifying works. Leonardo was one like that.
Yeah.
A lot of the Sacred Veil was composed like that, where Eric and I were together, and the melodies, and he would send me melodic material and I would make suggestions and so on. And he trusts me as, Eric and I have a long, deep relationship with one another, and we trust each other and we know each other's voice and taste. And so I feel like I could give those suggestions to Eric.
Yeah.
There are other composers whose relationship is more formal, more professional, and I wouldn't presume to suggest that.
Yeah.
it's a hallmark of mine that if they want to make changes in the poem, they absolutely can do that. My job is to serve them until such time as the poem is done. And I can do that because for all time, everyone will be in service of the poem forever.
Yeah.
And so while the poem is being constructed, I can be the servant of the composer and make sure that they get exactly what they need.
Yeah. I'm just fascinated by this whole process. I eat this stuff up, like the creative process, and just I love hearing composers' processes, and then I've just never heard a lyricist or a poet's process. So I'm eating this up. I love it.
It's very similar, I think. I've heard composers say they go into the cave and they seclude themselves, or they're trying to do 10,000 different things at once. And those are all the same experiences that I have.
Yeah.
There are times now that I'm not teaching, I have more bigger blocks of time that I can devote to single projects. When I was teaching and raising my kids, you steal the moments that you can steal, and you get it done. So I'm enjoying that sort of expansive nature of the retirement schedule.
No, for sure. So talk more about your visual art, because that was something I learned just by, going on your website, finding out that you did that as well. I'm sure this has happened, and if so, I would love to know more about it. Has your visual art ever inspired one of your poems, or vice versa? Has your poem inspired your visual art, or do you kind of keep them separate?
Well, they are really separate, but I think any artist or creative person will tell you that these interests bleed into one another, and you are a whole person, and every task that you do is done by your whole self. And I think creatives more than others have a hard time compartmentalizing those different parts of themselves. And so there are paintings that I've done that have directly inspired poems, because the thing that I was painting is still haunting me. It's still an itch that I'm trying to scratch. And so I'll pivot and write a poem about it. And the painting didn't quite scratch the itch, but maybe the poem will. And then I've also been asked to do calligraphied versions of my poetry for people. And I love doing that. I get out my paints and I just begin to craft a thing. How would I illustrate my own poem? So they've bled into one another quite a bit. And my process, my artistic process is fussy in the same way that my poetry process is. It's intentional and fussy. I do medieval illumination. And so my goal was to recreate the work of a medieval scriptorium. And so I make my own paint from scratch. I only paint on vellum, on calfskin. And I don't make my own brushes or stuff like that, but, I lay gold leaf, 24 karat gold leaf, and I try to do things the way they would do.
Yeah.
Whether it's an icon or an oil painting or a medieval illumination. It's all intentional and it's super hyper focused. And so that same hunched over, zeroed in on one little thing is just the way that I approach creativity. And so there's bleed over in method as well as in subject matter.
Just for clarity, how do you attain the calfskin?
He's in Kansas.
I know a guy. I know a guy.
I figured.
No, there's a manufacturer, the last remaining manufacturer, I think, of parchment in North America is a guy named Jesse Myers in New York State, and his they have a leather tannery, and you can get couch leather and stuff like that, but he has a separate workshop in the tannery that just does calfskin, sheepskin, and goat skin vellum or parchment for artists.
Okay.
And something, for me, like I'll buy a single skin that will last me for a long time when I cut it up, all the way from that to the St. John's Bible, which is this huge multi-volume thing, all done on calfskin. You have to remember that a medieval book is all handmade, and every book represents an entire herd of animals that had to be slaughtered and skinned and prepared in order to make the pages for that book. And so these Bibles and, psalters and things that we get from the Middle Ages are very precious.
Yeah. I think, now that you're retired, you need to stop slacking and make your own brushes too. Come on.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, there's feathers and there's enough squirrels in my neighborhood.
Yeah, there you go.
Every time I see a squirrel, I think there's a paintbrush right there.
Nice.
So if you want the calfskin, talk to Tony, and Tony will direct you to Jeffrey from New York, and then Jeffrey will give you the stuff. There we go. Done.
There's a guy that makes it in Canada also, and then there are several people in the UK that do it. So it's a readily available thing. It's rare, and it's expensive. A piece of watercolor paper that's 2 feet by 3 feet costs you $7. But a calfskin, which is about 2 feet by 3 feet, that's $230. So you have to, it's not for messing around. It's for special things.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Sight singing can be intimidating. One teacher shared, "I failed sight singing in college. Twice. But using S-Cubed, my middle school choir is thriving. They sight read together, stay engaged, and even correct me when I mess up, and we laugh through it together. That's what S-Cubed is all about, building a culture of confidence and progress, no matter what your background is. Whether you're new to choir or just want a stronger method, S-Cubed helps both students and teachers succeed. Join thousands of directors who found their solution by purchasing S-Cubed today. Are you looking for music that moves the heart, inspires voices, and elevates your choir sound? Check out Endeavor Music Publishing, your premier destination for fresh, expressive choral compositions and world-class composers. One of those composers is Cedric Hoeseb, a composer all the way from Namibia. A self-taught musician whose love for hymns in the Lutheran Church choir ignited a journey that led him to composing for school choirs. Cedric has become a powerful voice in the choral world since. At Endeavor Music Publishing, they champion voices like Cedric's by publishing works that are rooted in tradition, enriched by culture, and designed to uplift. Whether you're leading a choir, directing worship, or planning your next performance, their catalog delivers authenticity, excellence, and artistry. Experience the distinct sound of Endeavor. Discover Cedric Hoeseb's works today at EndeavorMusicPublishing.com. Sight Reading Factory isn't just a tool. It's your new assistant choir director. This powerful platform generates an endless supply of customized sight reading exercises that match your choir's level and focus areas. Whether you're prepping for contests or building daily literacy skills, SRF helps students develop real fluency with auto-graded, standards-aligned assignments that you can send straight to their devices. It can even integrate with your gradebook, so tracking progress is seamless. Add in features like solfege toggling, individual part practice, and full octavo support, and it's easy to see why SRF is the gold standard in choral sight reading. Try it now for as low as $3 per student at sightreadingfactory.com. And thanks again to SRF for sponsoring this portion of today's episode.
So I first heard Eric Whitacre's music and subsequently your art as well when I did Sleep for the first time, even like in 2010. I was part of a group called Springfield Mid-America Singers. I'd never heard music like that before, and it kind of changed everything and changed my entire perspective of what music could or should sound like. And this is, I guess 10 years after the fact, 10 years after the piece of, when was the piece written? 1999 or before
2000, 2001, I think.
Okay,
it was
so around 10 years after the fact. But it really was life-changing for me. So I've kind of had this fascination with, Eric Whitacre and his work for some time. I can think of so many of your collaborations with him that I've listened to. I've spent hours upon hours upon hours listening to them. So I'm a big fan. This is a little weird, but do you have a never told before story that you would feel comfortable sharing? A funny story involving you or an Eric Whitacre. I mean, you've known each other for 30 years. I'm sure you've had many a conversation, many a thing has happened. Can you think of something that just, when you think about it, just lights up your heart and you're like, oh my gosh, that Eric Whitacre guy? anything you can think of that would be worth sharing. Something that Eric would be like, did he really just share that? That would be the best case scenario.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to not going to compromise him that way.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I've been with him as he was having his hair prepared.
Okay.
Say.
I was going to say, that's a perfect way to make some brushes. You got
that's
Eric's.
true. Yeah, Eric Whitacre's cast-offs. I mean, they lived. Eric lived about a mile away from us when we lived in Los Angeles. My wife Julie and I. And when Thomas, our son, was little, I think he was 4, which is 3, when my wife got pregnant with our second child, Emma. And Emma's due date was like January 11th, something like that. But Eric's birthday is January 2nd. And so Eric would whisper to Julie's belly, January 2nd, January 2nd, January 2nd. And sure enough, on New Year's Eve, Eric and his then wife Hila came over for dinner, and we were watching the Times Square thing, and Thomas was bouncing around, and I have video of all of this, because Julie went into labor on New Year's Eve, and so Eric was convinced that he had influenced the baby to quicken. And come out. And sure enough, Emma waited until just after midnight on January 2nd, and then she was born.
Oh my gosh.
So they are Eric and Emma are birthday buddies.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
So he has magical powers.
He does have
speaking
magical
to the
powers.
womb. That's beautiful. Okay, Tony. So we ask all composers, what is your favorite piece you've ever composed, and what is your least favorite piece you've ever composed? So we're going to ask you, what's your favorite text you have ever written, and your least favorite text you've ever written? Now, you can't comment on the actual composition because we want to keep composers' emotions intact, but specifically your text. And people are still going to buy the piece, or if it's a poem that's in your book, they're still going to buy your book. This might make them buy it even more.
Well, I mean, I would have to say that my favorite of all pieces is Sleep.
Yeah.
It was the gateway for me as a poet. Just like it's a gateway for, you talk about meth. Sleep is the meth of the choral world, right? I can't tell you how many people.
That's my new. I'm getting a tattoo.
That's a great statement right there. Sleep is the meth of the choral world.
I've seen. But so many people have said that Sleep was their entree into this world of choral music, and it changed their life, and that just means so much to me. It's in its 2nd edition. It's a children's book. It's been an amazing creative work of my imagination that has gone on to have such a great life, and was, as I said, the doorway to me to so many different things. But they don't always work like that, you know?
Yeah.
Some of my poems are duds. and
I'm sure they're still better than what any of us could write.
I don't know about that. The imposter syndrome is real. And I kind of think all my poems are duds, but somebody seems to like them. I don't know why. But there's just thinking about works I wrote for Eric. Sleep was a humongous success, but right around that same time I wrote, and this is in my book, The Silver Thread, there is 9 simple prayers, which I really wanted to write them, and they're like the child that no one plays with at the playground, you know. Eric abandoned the text, the commission, I think, went a different direction, and he didn't use it, and it's in the book, and nobody's ever talked to me about it, and it's just kind of sad. So they're not all your kids grow up to be president of the United States, like Sleep. Some of them are just.
But the most important thing is, do you like the text of that? Even though other people haven't talked about it.
There are parts of it that I like, and parts of it that are cringy to me.
Yeah.
And there are other cringy ones that I've written. There was one called, what did I call it? I Love My Country or something like that. It's like, oh my God. And now that when I read it, it's absolutely more cringy, because what is there to love, really?
In the current political climate.
Yeah. Well, I was asked to write an extra verse to the national anthem too.
Oh.
And that was a little hokey.
It's a lofty task.
Yeah.
It is a lofty task. The worst national anthem ever. I mean, it's really, really hard to write
Yeah.
for that. Anyway,
I think what we're hearing here is there's 9 movements of a piece that with text written by Tony Silvestri that is out there. That some composer is going to come along. Yeah.
That'll be fun.
One last question. One of our good friends is Tyler Busick, who I know you wrote the text to his piece Rise. We can't necessarily talk about it, but do you know about the original version?
No.
All right.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that was a kind of puzzle, right? So here was an existing piece of music that
he wrote it as a joke.
Text.
He wrote it as a joke, and then now he has a piece published by Endeavor with text by Tony Silvestri. So anyway, we can't talk about the content of it, but that piece is awesome.
I approach those kind of things it's like a Rubik's Cube and a crossword puzzle all mixed up into one, and trying to fit text to music and meaning is just a really, really fun thing for me to do. So
yeah.
And Tyler, I added another composer to my collection.
Yeah,
so.
There you go. He's great. He's hilarious. You had one thing that you wanted to share to our listeners before we go. What is that you want to share?
Well, I mean, whenever I get in a room with singers, with a choir, I'm honored that they would have the lyricist. It's usually, I feel like Jan Brady, composer. It's always about the composer, and choral music doesn't happen without poetry.
Amen.
And I want to remind choruses that choirs do not perform music. Choirs perform poetry.
Yeah.
Music is the vehicle, the method by which they perform poetry, but it's poetry that they're performing. If it's not going to be about the text, then be a string orchestra.
Ooh,
and if the composer didn't want it to be about the text, they would have created a work for string orchestra.
Yeah.
Or a vocalese, right? And so the more intentional a choir can be, and this starts with the director and with the composer, and then the director and the choir, the planning of the rehearsal should be about the text. And singers should know what it is that they're singing, and they should find a way in to that text so that it's personal and intentional to them. And then their performance becomes electrifying. And audiences lean in to listen to what they're saying. Whether it's a church piece, a Latin thing, a motet, or something in French or whatever, if singers don't have any connection with what they're singing, it's just going to be boring, and people will clap and they'll move on to the next piece. But if you want to change somebody's life in the audience, then be intentional about the text. And I really do mean that. And I tell choirs that they are angels in the sense that they are the bearers of messages. There's something in every choral piece that they sing, some nugget, some good word that someone in the audience needs to hear.
Yeah.
Because of what they're going through. And you don't know who the intended recipient is of this message, and you don't even know which measures or which page or whatever is the message. But if all of your performance is heartfelt, authentic, vulnerable, intentional, genuine, then there's somebody in the audience that is going to be moved deeply by something that the poet has said. And as a poet, I'm so lucky that people get to read my poetry and experience my poetry with custom-made soundtracks created by the world's greatest composers, you know. So the music opens up their hearts, and then the poetry can get in and make a difference in somebody's life in so many different ways.
That's super powerful. And I think also that could be a lesson, even, let's say, like solo and ensemble. When a student introduces their solo, they'll say, I'm singing The Vagabond by Ray Vaughan Williams, right? They could say also with the text by Robert Louis Stevenson. And I think that opens up a new palette of sound that can be created through that lens. Something also interesting that's kind of, it's directly involving you too. So right now, I have a tenor bass choir that are working on Love Then and Still, which is really kind of a gripping text, obviously about something very personal with yourself. And to really open students up to even understand more, what we did is we used the Sacred Veil as a cross text to it, and we studied it. Even though we're not singing that work, but just to have more of a level of understanding for something that a lot of the students cannot. I mean, they can relate to it in some sort of way, but it's really it's something specific, and just to give them a little more context to it. So I think the story, context, the text is vital, and
I love that. Yeah. I love that you did that. That's a great idea. But yeah, just simply in a program, including the writer of the text as well as the composer in a program.
Yeah.
It invites the listener to go home and read some more, or including the texts in a program. Yeah, it adds an extra page or two and some more cost to your program, but that honors us, the meat and potatoes of what choral music is. Mm-hmm. It honors those of us who write the texts.
Yeah.
And shout out to Michael Dennis Brown. May he rest in peace, having passed this week. What a giant.
Yeah. Hashtag Poets Matter.
Poets matter. Yeah. We do.
Poets matter. Well, love it. Hey, Tony, thank you so much for being on our podcast. This has been just a delight to be able to speak with you and talk to you about again, the most important part of choral music. And we just could not have had a better poet on. Obviously, you are the poet for choral music. I think that's all your bio needs to say. Like, you don't need anything else. The poet for choral music. So we appreciate it, and thanks for taking time out of your day to talk with us and our listeners.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me, and keep doing what you're doing. Your podcasts are so informative and fun and uplifting and important. So kudos to you guys, and just keep going.
Not as important as poets.
As important.
Oh, wow.
There we go.
I don't know about that. Well, that wraps up this week's episode of the Choir Guys podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to the Choir Guys channel so you can know when new episodes are coming out. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
We cannot be more thankful for our incredible sponsors. Please make sure to visit their websites and check them out in the description box below.
Crushed it.
If you are interested in partnering with the Choir Guys, please email us at thechoirguyspod@gmail.com.
You can follow the show on all social media at The Choir Guys Pod to catch bonus content throughout the week. I can't even say bonus. Feel free to message us through these platforms if you want to hear us talk about something specific on the show.
Thanks again to our guest, Tony Silvestri, for joining us on the podcast today. Your text constantly inspires our younger singers and older singers of the world.
Yeah,
and
everyone.
we could not be more thankful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we will see you all in a couple weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Hames Insurance isn't tied to just one provider. That means more choices, better coverage, and honest guidance from people who actually care. They'll compare your personal insurance options and make sure you get what's right, not just what's available. Start the conversation at hamesinsurance.com. Sight Reading Factory now features auto assessment and gradebook integration. Save time, track progress, and help your singers grow, all in one place. Check out sightreadingfactory.com today. If you want inspiring, ethically published choral music, check out Endeavor Music Publishing. Their composers earn 5 times more than the norm. Support these composers at endeavormusicpublishing.com. One teacher said it best: this program has been life-changing. S Cubed helped her small choir thrive, even with a mix of abilities and zero prior experience. If you want to build confidence, consistency, and community in your classroom, S cubed is the way. Successful sight singing starts here.